My name is Margaret Caldwell, and I am 45 years old. For 18 years, my husband Daniel called me just a housewife. He said it at dinner parties when people asked what I did. He said it to his business partners when he introduced me. He said it with a smile that looked affectionate but felt like a pat on the head, diminishing me until I was small enough to fit in his pocket. He thought my world started at the kitchen sink and ended at the laundry room. He thought I didn't understand bank statements or investment portfolios. He thought I was safe and predictable and blind. He was wrong. While he was working late in hotel rooms with a woman 10 years younger than me, I was working too. I was moving money. I was documenting assets. I was building a life raft out of the wreckage of our marriage, piece by piece, dollar by dollar. And when the time came, I didn't just leave him. I bankrupted his ego. I am telling you this now, from a house that is entirely mine, paid for with the money he tried to hide, because I want you to know something important. Just because you are quiet doesn't mean you aren't dangerous. We met when I was 25. Daniel was older, already established in real estate. He was charming, the kind of man who filled a room with his voice and his confidence. I was a teacher then, passionate about literature and history, but Daniel swept me into a different life. A life of galas and country clubs and expectations. When we got married, he suggested I stop working. "I want to take care of you, Maggie," he said. "You'll run the house. You'll be the CEO of our family." It sounded romantic at the time. I wanted children. I wanted to build a home. So I agreed. I quit my job. I put my books in storage. I became Mrs. Daniel Caldwell. The first few years were good, or so I told myself. We had a son, Leo. Then a daughter, Sarah. I threw myself into motherhood. I organized bake sales. I decorated for holidays. I made sure Daniel's shirts were pressed and his dinner was hot when he walked through the door at 7. But slowly, the dynamic shifted. "Maggie, don't worry your pretty head about the finances," he would say when I asked about our savings. Or, "I handle the earning, you handle the spending," when I wanted to discuss a budget. It wasn't a partnership anymore. It was an allowance. I started to feel less like a wife and more like an employee he was sleeping with. But I stayed quiet. I told myself this was the deal I had made. I had a beautiful house. My children were happy. Daniel was a good provider. Then came the late nights. It started about 3 years ago. Daniel's business was booming. He was developing luxury condos downtown. He was always on site, always meeting investors. He came home smelling of expensive scotch and someone else's perfume, subtle, floral, not mine. I asked him about it once. Just once. "Daniel, you smell different," I said one night as he undressed. He froze, then laughed. "It's the air freshener in the new car, Maggie. You're imagining things." He patted my cheek. "You've been reading too many of those mystery novels." He made me feel foolish. Paranoid. Like a bored housewife inventing drama to fill her empty days. So I stopped asking. But I started watching. I noticed he changed his phone passcode. I noticed he started taking calls on the terrace, closing the glass door behind him. I noticed the way he smiled at his phone when he thought I wasn't looking, a soft, private smile he used to give me. One Tuesday in November, he left his iPad on the kitchen island. He usually took it everywhere, but he was rushing to a breakfast meeting. I was making coffee. The screen lit up with a notification. A message from R. "Last night was incredible. Can't wait for the weekend." I stared at it. The words burned into my retinas. The weekend. He had told me he was going on a golfing trip with his partners. I didn't unlock the iPad. I didn't need to. I knew. The floor felt like it dropped out from under me. I gripped the granite counter, my knuckles turning white. 18 years. 2 children. A life built on trust, and he was throwing it away for a weekend with R. My first instinct was to scream. To call him. To demand an explanation. To pack his bags and burn them on the front lawn. But then I heard his voice in my head. "Just a housewife. You're imagining things." If I confronted him now, he would lie. He would gaslight me. He would tell me R was a client, a realtor, a mistake. He would hide everything. He would protect his money, his reputation, his assets. And I would be left with nothing but my anger. No. I took a deep breath. I poured my coffee. And I made a decision. I would not be the hysterical wife. I would be the CEO he mockingly called me. I started that morning. Daniel handled the big accounts, but I handled the household expenses. I had access to the joint checking account, the credit cards, the filing cabinet in his home office where he kept tax returns and property deeds. He was sloppy because he was arrogant. He thought I wouldn't understand what I was looking at. He forgot that before I was a housewife, I was a math teacher. I understand numbers. I waited until he left for his golf trip. Then I went into his office. I didn't just look. I audited him. I went through 5 years of tax returns. I photographed every page. I found bank statements for accounts I didn't know existed. An offshore holding company in the Caymans. A LLC registered in Nevada that owned an apartment in the city, an apartment I had never seen. I pieced it together. He wasn't just cheating emotionally. He was siphoning marital assets to fund a double life. The Nevada LLC was paying utilities for the apartment. It was paying for jewelry. It was paying for flights. I found a credit card statement for the LLC. Dinners at restaurants I couldn't get a reservation at. Lingerie shops. A spa weekend in Napa. He was spending our children's inheritance on his mistress. I felt sick. Physically ill. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. Then I washed my face, looked in the mirror at the woman with tired eyes and graying roots, and said out loud, "Not anymore." I needed a plan. I called an old friend from college, Sarah. She was a forensic accountant now. I hadn't spoken to her in years because Daniel didn't like her too aggressive, he called her. Now I knew why. We met for coffee in a town 40 minutes away. I brought the photos on a thumb drive. Sarah looked at them in silence. Then she looked at me. "Maggie," she said, "this is huge. He's hiding millions. If you divorce him now, he'll fight you. He'll hide more. He'll claim these are business expenses. So what do I do?" I asked. She leaned in. "You stay. You play the part. And you start moving the money back." "How?" "He thinks you're stupid," Sarah said. "Use that. Ask for things. Ask for renovations. Ask to update your car. Ask for cash for household emergencies. We need to liquidate what we can into assets you control." So began my double life. For 6 months, I was the perfect wife. I cooked his favorite meals. I listened to him brag about his deals. I smiled when he came home late. I even asked about his golf trip, listening to him lie about his handicap while I imagined him in that apartment with her. And while I played the part, I bled him dry. "Daniel," I said one night over dinner, "the kitchen is looking so dated. I think it's time for a remodel." He frowned. "It's fine, Maggie." "But the Joneses just did theirs," I said, appealing to his vanity. "And if we want to host the charity gala this year, we need to look the part." He agreed. He wrote a check for $80,000. I hired a contractor I knew. I told him I wanted the cheapest cosmetic updates possible, but invoiced for the high-end materials. The difference, about $50,000, went into a separate account I opened in my maiden name. "Daniel," I said a month later, "my car is making a funny noise. I think it's unsafe for the kids." He sighed, but bought me a brand new luxury SUV. $90,000. 2 weeks later, I sold it. I bought a used Honda for $15,000 and told him the SUV was in the shop, or Leo borrowed it. He never checked. He barely looked at the driveway. The cash difference went into the account. I started grocery shopping at cheaper stores, but withdrawing the cash equivalent of Whole Foods prices. I canceled expensive subscriptions and pocketed the difference. I sold designer purses he bought me years ago on resale sites. Bit by bit, dollar by dollar, I was building a war chest. But the biggest move was the house. Our home was worth $2 million. It was mortgage-free, paid off years ago with an inheritance Daniel received. It was his pride and joy. I knew he was distracted with a new development deal that was going sideways. He was stressed. He was drinking more. He was spending more time with R, who I learned was named Rebecca, a 28-year-old marketing consultant he hired. "Daniel," I said one evening, putting on my most worried face. "I've been reading about liability. With this new deal, aren't you worried about someone suing you personally? If the house is in your name." He looked up from his scotch. What do you mean? Well, I said, innocent as a lamb. If a deal goes bad, they can come after your assets. But if the house was in my name, or a trust controlled by me, it would be safe. Just to protect the family. He thought about it. His arrogance blinded him. He thought I was his asset. He thought giving me the house was like putting money in a safe he had the combination to. You might be right, Maggie, he said. You're sharper than you look. He signed the deed over the next week. Put the house in a revocable trust where I was the sole trustee. I almost laughed when he handed me the pen. For the family, I said, signing my name. For the family, he repeated, already looking at his phone, probably texting Rebecca. I had the house. I had $150,000 in cash. I had evidence of his offshore accounts. But I wasn't done. I wanted him to feel it. I waited for the perfect moment. Our 20th anniversary was approaching. He had been planning a party. A big one. To show off his success. To show off his happy family. He told me he had a surprise for me. A second honeymoon, he said. Paris. Just us. I smiled. That sounds wonderful, Daniel. I knew he wouldn't be taking me to Paris. I had seen the email confirmation on his iPad. 2 tickets to Paris. One for Daniel Caldwell. One for Rebecca Miller. He was planning to take his mistress on our anniversary trip. He was going to leave me at home with the party cleanup while he romanced her in the city of lights. The cruelty of it took my breath away. It wasn't just cheating. It was erasure. He was erasing me from my own life. That was the night I stopped feeling guilty about the money. That was the night I decided to burn it all down. I went to the bank the next day. I withdrew another $10,000. I booked a ticket for myself. Not to Paris. To Italy. A place I had always wanted to go, but Daniel said was too chaotic. Then I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. The nastiest, most shark-like divorce attorney in the state. A woman named Evelyn Cross who terrified men like Daniel. I have everything, I told her. The offshore accounts. The mistress. The Nevada LLC. And the house is in my name. Evelyn smiled. It was a terrifying smile. Margaret, she said, we are going to have fun. The plan was set for the night of the anniversary party. 80 guests. His business partners. Our neighbors. His family. I spent the day getting ready. I bought a dress. Not a housewife dress. A red dress. Fitted. Bold. The kind of dress Daniel would say was too much. I did my hair. I put on red lipstick. I looked in the mirror and saw a stranger. A dangerous stranger. The guests arrived. Daniel was playing the host, laughing, pouring champagne. He kissed my cheek for the photos. You look nice, Maggie, he said, dismissively. Thank you, Daniel, I said. You look expensive. He laughed, missing the edge in my voice. At 8 o'clock, he tapped his glass for a toast. To 20 years, he boomed. To my lovely wife, Margaret. The rock of our family. The woman who keeps the home fires burning while I'm out conquering the world. Laughter. Applause. He raised his glass. And to the future. May it be as prosperous as the past. He drank. I stepped forward. I'd like to say a few words, I said. Daniel looked surprised. I never spoke at these things. Of course, darling, he said, handing me the floor, looking benevolent. I took a breath. I looked at the crowd. I looked at Daniel. Daniel talks a lot about the future, I began. And about conquering the world. But he forgot to mention one thing. I paused. The room went quiet. He forgot to mention Rebecca. Daniel froze. His smile faltered. Rebecca Miller, I continued, my voice steady. His 28-year-old marketing consultant. The woman he's taking to Paris tomorrow on tickets bought with our joint account. Gasps. Murmurs. Daniel stepped toward me, his face turning red. Maggie, you're drunk. Stop this. I'm not drunk, Daniel, I said. I'm enlightened. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a stack of photos. Photos of him and Rebecca entering the apartment. Photos of the bank statements showing the jewelry purchases. I threw them into the air. They fluttered down like confetti. Happy anniversary, Daniel, I said. I'm filing for divorce. And by the way, get off my property. Your property? He snarled. This is my house. Not anymore, I said. Check the deed. You signed it over to my trust 3 months ago. To protect the family, remember? His face went white. The blood drained out of him so fast he looked like a ghost. You tricked me, he whispered. I manage the family assets, I corrected. Like a CEO. Security, which I had hired privately for the night, stepped forward. Mr. Caldwell, the guard said. Mrs. Caldwell has asked you to leave. Daniel looked around. His partners were staring at the photos. His mother was clutching her pearls. His world was crumbling in real time. He looked at me with pure hatred. You'll regret this, Maggie, he hissed. You'll be nothing without me. I was nothing with you, I said. Now, I'm rich. He was escorted out. The party dissolved into chaos. I poured myself another glass of champagne. I stood in the center of the room, alone in my red dress. And for the first time in 20 years, I felt like I could breathe. The morning after the party, I woke up to a house that was finally mine. The cleanup crew came at 8. They worked quietly, removing the tables, sweeping up the confetti photos, wiping down the champagne flutes. I sat in the kitchen with coffee, watching them through the window, feeling strangely detached. Like I was watching someone else's life on television. My phone started buzzing at 9. Daniel, over and over. I let it go to voicemail. You crazy bitch, his first message said. You humiliated me in front of everyone. You think you're smart? You'll never get away with this. I listened to 3 more. Same theme. Rage, threats, promises of lawyers more vicious than mine. I smiled. He had no idea. Evelyn called at 10. The papers are filed, she said. Divorce petition, temporary restraining order, asset freeze on all accounts we know about. He'll be served today. Good, I said. He'll fight dirty, she warned. Expect him to claim emotional abuse, financial coercion, whatever sticks. Let him, I said. I have the receipts. The receipts. That was the phrase Sarah taught me. Every transfer. Every sale. Every invoice. Every photo. Every hotel booking. I had documented it all. Daniel was served that afternoon. I watched from the upstairs window as the process server handed him the papers on my driveway. He looked small. Defeated. He tore them up and threw them on the ground. He called again. I answered this time. What the hell, Maggie, he yelled. You can't do this. I already did, I said calmly. The house is mine, he said. I paid for it. You signed it over, I said. You wanted to protect it from your business liabilities. Remember? Silence. Then you planned this. No, I said. You planned this when you bought Rebecca lingerie with our money. He hung up. That night, Leo and Sarah came home from college. I had called them the day before, told them we needed to talk. They walked in together, backpacks slung over their shoulders, looking wary. Mom? Leo said. What's going on? Dad's blowing up our phones. I sat them down at the kitchen table. I poured them lemonade. I told them everything. Not just the affair. The offshore accounts. The apartment. The money I moved. The house. They listened in silence. Sarah's eyes filled with tears halfway through. Leo's jaw clenched tighter and tighter. When I finished, Sarah spoke first. How long have you known? 5 months, I said. Why didn't you tell us? Leo asked. Because I needed to protect you, I said. Both of you. From him. From his version of the story. Leo stood up suddenly. He cheated on you. He stole from us. And you just let him come home every night. I survived him, I said. Until I didn't have to anymore. Sarah reached for my hand. Are you okay, Mom? I looked at her. At my daughter who is becoming a woman. At my son who is becoming a man. I am now, I said. They stayed home for a week. We talked. We cried. We laughed sometimes, remembering the good years before Daniel became the man he was. Leo asked me the hardest question. Do you still love him? I thought about it. I loved who I thought he was, I said. But that man doesn't exist. And I don't love liars. Daniel tried to turn them against me. He sent long texts explaining his side. He claimed I was unstable. That I manipulated him into signing the house over. That I was punishing him for a mistake. Leo forwarded me one. Dad says you're taking all his money. That you're leaving him with nothing. I read it aloud to both of them. Is that true? Sarah asked. I opened my laptop. I showed them the accounts. The transfers. The offshore holdings worth millions that Daniel had hidden. He was leaving us with nothing, I said. Not the other way around. They stopped responding to him. The divorce was ugly, as Evelyn predicted. Daniel hired 3 lawyers. They deposed me for 8 hours. They claimed I was vindictive. They demanded forensic accounting on every dollar I moved. Evelyn shredded them. Mrs. Caldwell transferred marital funds to marital assets, she said flatly. She sold an SUV, a marital asset, and bought a more practical vehicle. She renovated a marital home. These are not fraudulent transfers. These are prudent financial decisions. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Helen Vargas, agreed. Mr. Caldwell, she said during one hearing, you signed a deed transferring the primary marital residence to your wife's trust. You claim coercion. Where's your proof? Daniel shifted in his seat. She acted like she was protecting me. Judge Vargas raised an eyebrow. And you, a sophisticated real estate developer, believed a housewife was capable of coercing you into signing away $2 million in equity? Silence. Case dismissed, she said. Daniel appealed. He lost. The financial settlement came next. Evelyn presented the offshore accounts. The Nevada LLC. The Paris tickets. Daniel's lawyers tried to argue they were business expenses. Evelyn produced the lingerie receipts. The spa weekends. The apartment lease with Rebecca's name on it. The judge was not amused. Mr. Caldwell, she said, you dissipated marital assets on an extramarital affair. The court awards Mrs. Caldwell 60% of all liquid assets, the house, and full custody of the children. Daniel slammed his pen down. This is robbery. It is justice, Judge Vargas said. He left the courtroom shaking. Rebecca tried to insert herself once. She sent me an email through her lawyer. I had no idea he was married, it lied. I am also a victim. I forwarded it to Evelyn. Evelyn sent back a single line, irrelevant. But karma found Rebecca anyway. She worked for Daniel's main competitor. When the story broke, her firm fired her. Cannot have someone associated with financial fraud, they said. She tried to sue for wrongful termination. She lost. She ended up working retail in the suburbs. Daniel's business collapsed. His partners abandoned him. His investors demanded repayment. He sold everything he could. His boat. His watches. His golf clubs. He rented a small apartment. He drove a used sedan. He called Leo and Sarah from a prepaid phone. They didn't answer. Leo went to college on his own merit scholarship. Sarah started a summer job. They didn't need his money anymore. They had their mother's. 6 months after the divorce was final, Daniel showed up at the house. It was a Saturday morning. I was in the garden, planting bulbs for spring. He stood at the gate, looking older than his 52 years. His suit hung off him. His eyes were bloodshot. Maggie, he said. I stood up, brushing dirt from my hands. Daniel, can we talk? I considered it. Then I opened the gate. We sat on the porch steps. Silence stretched between us. I'm sorry, he said finally. I waited. I was wrong, he said. About everything. About you. About us. I thought I was building something great. I thought you were holding me back. I looked at him. And now? Now I have nothing, he said. No business. No family. No wife. Just debt and a shitty apartment. I nodded. I should have appreciated you, he said. You were always the smart one. I was too busy chasing younger women and bigger deals to see it. Why are you here? I asked. He looked down at his hands. I don't know. To apologize, I guess. To see if there's any way to make it right. There's not, I said. He nodded. I figured. He stood up slowly. Take care of yourself, Maggie. Her name is Margaret, I said. He looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. Margaret, he said. He walked back to his car. An old Civic with a dented fender. He drove away. I went back to my garden. I finished planting the bulbs. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine. I sat on the porch and watched the stars come out. Leo and Sarah were coming home for the weekend. We were going to make lasagna. Watch movies. Be a family. Not the family I planned. Not the family Daniel built. The family I earned. I raised my glass to the dark. To CEOs, I whispered. And I drank. The divorce settlement money hit my accounts 3 weeks after Daniel drove away in his dented Civic. It was a staggering number. $2,300,000, plus the house, plus the SUV sitting in the garage. I stared at the bank confirmation email for a long time, waiting for the thrill of victory. It never came. What came instead was exhaustion. A bone-deep weariness that made even opening the mailbox feel like lifting weights. I had been fighting for 6 months, planning for nearly a year, surviving for 18 years. And now it was over. But over is not the same as healed. Leo and Sarah noticed first. They came home that weekend as planned, but I could barely get out of bed Saturday morning. They made breakfast. They brought me coffee. Sarah sat on the edge of my bed and brushed my hair back from my forehead. "Mom," she said quietly, "you don't have to be strong all the time now. You won." I looked at her. My daughter, 16 years old, wise beyond her years. "I don't know how to stop," I admitted. She nodded. "Then we'll help you." They did. They helped me unpack boxes I had been avoiding. They helped me sort through Daniel's things that the lawyers had sent over, his watches, his cufflinks, a few suits he never wore. We donated most of it. Leo kept one tie, for when I need to look like a grown-up, he joked. But the real work was internal. The work no one could help me with. I stopped pretending I was fine. I cried when I needed to. I got angry when memories surfaced. I sat in silence when the house felt too big and too quiet. I went back to Sarah, the forensic accountant. Not for business. For coffee. Real coffee as friends. "You look different," she said when I walked into the cafe. "Different how?" I asked. "Freer," she said. "Like you finally took off a costume that didn't fit." I smiled. "I think you're right." We talked for hours. About the marriage. About the affair. About the money. About what came next. "What are you going to do with it all?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "Part of me wants to burn it. Part of me wants to hide it under the mattress. Part of me wants to buy something ridiculous, like a yacht." She laughed. "All valid options." "But seriously," I said, "I keep thinking about Leo and Sarah's college. About maybe going back to school myself. About helping other women who are stuck like I was." Sarah leaned forward. "You could do that. You have the skills now. The experience. You could teach women how to protect themselves." I thought about that. "Maybe. Do more than maybe," she said. "You survived a master manipulator. That's worth sharing." Her words stuck with me. Survived a master manipulator. Daniel wasn't just a cheater. He was a strategist. He cultivated my ignorance. He isolated me from friends who might have warned me. He made me dependent so he could control the narrative. I started small. I wrote a blog post. What I wish I knew before my husband hid millions. I posted it anonymously on a few forums. Women responded by the hundreds. "I thought I was crazy," one wrote. "My husband says I'm imagining things too," wrote another. "Thank you," wrote a third, all caps. I kept writing. I shared the techniques. How to read bank statements. How to spot offshore accounts. How to document without getting caught. How to hire the right lawyer. The blog grew. Women started emailing me directly. "Can you look at these statements? Is this normal? What should I do?" I helped where I could. Pro bono at first. Then I started charging consulting fees. Sarah helped me set up the business. Caldwell Asset Recovery, we called it. No one knew it was me except a few trusted people. Daniel found out anyway. He showed up at my new office 6 months after the divorce, a small space downtown that I rented with consulting money. He walked in without knocking, looking haggard. "Maggie," he said. "You're doing what?" I looked up from my desk. "Hello, Daniel." He waved a printout. "One of my blog posts. You're teaching women how to steal from their husbands?" "I'm teaching women how to reclaim what's theirs," I corrected. His face reddened. "This is libel. You can't use my story." "It's anonymized," I said. "No names. And everything I say is true." "You're profiting off my mistakes," he said. "Your mistakes profited off me for 18 years, I said. "We're even." He leaned on my desk. "You think you're some kind of hero now?" Some empowered businesswoman. No, I said. I'm just done being your doormat. He straightened up. The kids hate you for this, you know. I felt that one. It landed like a punch. Did they tell you that? He smirked. They don't have to. They know what you did. They're adults, I said. They can decide for themselves. He laughed, bitter. Enjoy your little side hustle, Maggie. It won't last. He walked out. I sat there shaking for 10 minutes. Then I called Leo. Your father was just here, I said. What did he say? Leo asked. He said you hate me. Long pause. Mom, we don't hate you. We hate what he did to you. And we hate that he keeps trying to make you the bad guy. I exhaled. Okay. We're proud of you, Sarah said from the background. Tell him that next time. I smiled through tears. I will. Daniel's life continued to unravel. Rebecca left him, not just the affair, but she sued him for emotional distress and breach of promise. She claimed he led her on about marriage. She got $200,000. He didn't have it, so she took his car collection. His business partners testified against him in a civil suit. They claimed he misrepresented the finances of his developments. He settled for $1. $2 million he didn't have. He declared bankruptcy a year after our divorce. Everything gone. House. Savings. Reputation. He moved to a different state. Started over selling real estate again. Small time. No one knew his history there, or if they did, they didn't care. Leo and Sarah finished college. Leo went to law school. Sarah became a teacher, like I used to be. They visited often. They brought friends. They filled the house with noise. I expanded the business. Hired 2 more forensic accountants. Started a non-profit arm for women who couldn't afford help. Spoke at women's conferences. Wrote a book, not a memoir, a practical guide. Hidden Assets. How to Protect Yourself Before It's Too Late. The book did well. Not bestseller well, but enough to fund the non-profit fully. Women sent letters. Stories like mine, worse than mine. I read them all. One night, I got an email that stopped me cold. Mrs. Caldwell, my name is Emily Harper. I was Daniel's assistant 5 years ago. I know about Rebecca. I was her before Rebecca. He told me you were crazy. That you spied on him. That you made his life hell. I believed him. I slept with him. I am sorry. I see now what he did. Thank you for telling your story. It saved me from staying longer. I sat with that email for days. Emily. Rebecca. Probably more I never knew. Daniel was a serial destroyer. But he could not destroy me anymore. 2 years after the divorce, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Margaret Caldwell? A man's voice said. Yes? This is Detective Ryan from the Financial Crimes Unit. We're investigating Daniel Caldwell for mortgage fraud on several properties. I sat down. What do you need from me? Your testimony, he said. You have records of his financial behavior. Patterns. Offshore transfers. We think he was laundering money through his developments. I said yes. The trial was in spring. Daniel looked broken. Shorter somehow. Smaller. He avoided my eyes. I testified for 2 days. Every transfer. Every account. Every lie. The jury took 4 hours. Guilty. 5 years probation. $800,000 restitution. No more real estate licenses. Ever. He called me from the courthouse steps. I answered. It's over, he said. His voice was flat. Defeated. No, I said. It's just beginning. For me. I hung up. Leo graduated law school that summer. Sarah got engaged. I walked her down the aisle. No Daniel. Just us. I sit here now, in the house that is mine, with the garden that is mine, with the life that is mine. I am 47. I have gray hair I do not dye. Lines around my eyes from laughing with my children. A business that helps hundreds of women a year. Daniel? Last I heard, he was living in a trailer park. Working construction. Alone. Justice was served. Not by a judge. Not by karma with a capital K. By a housewife who learned to read the fine print. And that is the real story. Not the money. Not the revenge. The survival.